Sri Lankans will go to vote on the 21st of September for a crucial presidential election, the first since the nation plunged into economic turmoil 2 years ago, forcing the people to queue up for basic necessities such as fuel and cooking gas. Among the list running for presidency, 39 candidates, the highest for a presidential election in the history. The top candidates running for office are incumbent President Ranil Wickremesinghe, opposition leader Sajith Premadasa and National People's Power leader Anurakumara Dissanayake. The 2024 poll also marks the entry of Namal Rajapaksa, the youngest presidential candidate in Sri Lankan political history, and the entry of entrepreneur Dilip Jayawira. This is the third time incumbent President Ranil Wickremesinghe is running for presidency. He first contested in 1999 against former President Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga and in 2005 against former President Mahinda Rajapaksa. Both opposition leader Sajith Premadasa and NPP leader Anurakumara Dissanayake are contesting for the top office for a second time, their first in 2019. President Ranil Wickremesinghe, now 75, brings over 50 years of political experience, having previously held key positions including 6 terms as Prime Minister. He has been the leader of the United National Party since 1994. He first became Prime Minister in 1993 after the assassination of then-President Ranasinghe Premadasa and later held premiership in the government of former Presidents Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga in 2001, Maithripala Sirisena in 2015 and 2018, and then in 2022 under the presidency of Gotabaya Rajapaksa. He was also the leader of the opposition in Parliament, a position he held from 1994 to 2001 and 2004 to 2015. 57-year-old Sajith Premadasa is the leader of the main opposition party, Samaki Janabalawegaya, which was formed after breaking away from the United National Party in 2020. Sajith Premadasa been active in politics for more than 23 years, notably serving as leader of the opposition since 2020 and Minister of Housing and Constructions in 2015 government of President Maithripala Sirisena and Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe. He is the son of the late President Ranasinghe Premadasa. Anurakumara Dissanayake, aged 55, with over 30 years of political experience, has led the leftist Janata Vimukthi Peramuna since 2014. Under his leadership, the JVP formed a coalition with 21 political organizations and political parties in 2019 to form the National People's Power. He served as Minister of Agriculture, Livestock Development and Irrigation in the 2004 government of President Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga. 37-year-old Namal Rajapaksa is the son of former President Mahinda Rajapaksa, who is credited for ending the war, and nephew of 7th Executive President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who became the first Sri Lankan president to resign from office. Namal has been active in politics since 2010, having served as Minister of Youth Affairs and Sports from 2020 and the State Minister of Digital Technology and Entrepreneur Development in 2021 under the government of former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. Dilip Jayawira, aged 56, a lawyer and media owner who chaired Sri Lanka's oldest company, George Stewart and Company, is among Frontrunners. He is co-founder of Powerhouse Limited, a media group owning electronic, printed and digital media. Prior to entering politics, he stepped down from the boards of several public listed companies earlier this year. He is the leader of the Maubima Janata Party and the presidential candidate of the Sarva Janabalaya Alliance. Economic Policies and IMF. Since assuming office following former Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa's resignation under the government of Gotabaya Rajapaksa, then Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe focused on stabilizing the economy through IMF bailout packages, austerity measures and debt restructuring. After assuming the office of President following the resignation of former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, he prioritized rebuilding the economy through international cooperation, particularly with the IMF, to restore investor confidence. Wickremesinghe's policies emphasize a market-oriented approach aiming to encourage foreign investment, restructure debt and reform key sectors. His government has committed to implementing IMF conditions, including raising taxes, cutting subsidies and reducing public debt. Despite opposition to these austerity measures, Wickremesinghe has defended them as essential for economic recovery. He has promised, however, to reduce the increased taxes after further discussions with the IMF as the economy stabilizes. Sajith Premadasa, representing the Samaki Janabalawegaya, advocates renegotiations with the IMF agreements to provide more relief to lower-income citizens and outline his approach would be one that balances economic reforms, focusing job creation and poverty reduction. Premadasa aims to boost local industries while managing debt. His key economic proposals include cutting taxes for small businesses and offering low-interest loans. Sajith Premadasa also proposes amendments to provide relief to those below the poverty line and improving the quality of life for Sri Lankans. He also promises to enhance trade liberalization and foreign direct investment to boost private sector involvement and advocates to support farmers by waiving existing loans, modernizing agriculture with technology such as AI and hydroponics, and reducing post-harvest losses. Anurakumara Dissanayake of the National People's Power seeks to renegotiate Sri Lanka's bailout deal with the IMF. Dissanayake advocates reducing reliance on the IMF and focusing on domestic economic reforms. His policies include increasing taxes on the wealthiest 10%, abolishing VAT on essential goods, and supporting local businesses to reduce cost of living. He proposes offsetting the revenue loss from abolishing value-added tax estimated at 300 billion rupees by increasing taxes on the wealthy. Dissanayake also aimed to introduce a new debt sustainability analysis to maintain manageable interest levels and ensure long-term debt sustainability. Namal Rajapaksa, the youngest candidate, highlights economic development and food security as central to his platform. He proposes revising VAT and pay-as-you-earn taxes while addressing potential revenue losses through improvements in customs, inland revenue and excise departments. Namal's economic vision includes improving Sri Lanka's GDP to over 180 billion US dollars and increasing per capita GDP to over 8,000 US dollars. Dilip Jayavira, who introduced his manifesto as a strategic plan, promises to create a globally competitive, resilient production economy driven by entrepreneurship, innovation and strategic investments, ensuring sustainable development and prosperity. The manifesto condemns the overdependence on imports, revenue crisis due to tax breaks and tax evasions. Therefore, Jayavira's focus is on domestic reforms rather than seeking foreign loans such as those from the IMF. He proposes to establish a national debt management agency to handle both domestic and foreign debt. He also proposes progressive tax reforms to achieve a more equitable distribution of taxes, with a target of 40% from the direct taxes and 60% from indirect taxes. A digital system will be introduced to streamline tax collection and reduce evasion. This system is expected to increase state revenue by 30% annually, potentially adding 1 trillion rupees in the first year. In healthcare policies, President Wickremesinghe's focus is on modernization through public-private partnerships. He plans to attract 1.5 billion US dollars in investments to improve healthcare infrastructure, particularly in rural areas, and aims to increase health spending by 20% over 5 years. His plan includes reducing waiting time, improving access to modern medical equipment, and introducing new regulations for private hospitals. Sajith Premadasa's healthcare proposals center on expanding public health services and integrating estate sector health facilities into the national system. He pledges to raise public healthcare funding to 4% of the GDP and plans to build 200 new hospitals across the island to improve rural healthcare access. Anurakumara Dissanayake advocates for free universal healthcare, planning to raise healthcare spending to 5% of GDP from the current level. He also promises to abolish taxes on medical equipment and pharmaceuticals while ensuring better staffing for rural hospitals and enhancing primary healthcare services. Namal Rajapaksa's healthcare platform includes a 20% increase in the national healthcare budget, with plans to build 100 new primary healthcare centers, especially in rural areas. He also proposes increasing mental health funding by 30%, recognizing the growing mental health crisis, particularly after the COVID-19 pandemic. Dilip Jayavira, meanwhile, guarantees health and well-being for all citizens, ensuring access to a world-class healthcare system. He proposes to establish a national disease prevention and planning agency that will track, predict, and control disease outbreaks through technology and data. The plan includes a focus on the elderly population. He also proposes to start a national health insurance fund that will cover healthcare needs, including access to private or overseas health facilities in emergencies, and pledges to develop the 9 provincial hospitals to meet national standards. Education. In the education sector, President Wickremesinghe aims to modernize education by digitalizing schools and introducing STEM education and coding into the national curriculum. He plans to increase Sri Lanka's ICT literacy rate from 40% to 75% by 2030 and collaborate with international universities to raise educational standards. Sajith Premadasa pledges to raise the education budget to 6% of GDP, focusing on free higher education and vocational training. He plans to build 1,000 new schools and improve educational infrastructure across the country with a goal of achieving a 90% literacy rate in IT and digital skills by 2030. Anurakumara Disanayake emphasizes universal access to education, aiming to abolish private education fees and provide free textbooks and uniforms to all students. He plans to increase public investments in education to 70% of GDP. Namal Rajapaksa proposes investing $500 million in creating digital infrastructure for schools with plans to equip them with computer labs and e-learning platforms. He also prioritized vocational and technical training, promising to establish 50 new vocational training centers nationwide. Dilip Jayavira, who plans to promote entrepreneurship, proposes an overhaul of the education system to promote creativity, entrepreneurship and intrinsic Sri Lankan values. He proposes government-monitored preschools focusing on activity-based syllabi and early introduction to entrepreneurship concepts. A national-level benchmark examination will be introduced by grade 9. For university education, the focus will be on nurturing well-rounded students with practical training, entrepreneurship and life skills. In social welfare, President Wickremesinghe's government currently supports 1.8 million households but plan to reduce welfare program to maintain a long-term fiscal discipline. While his manifesto acknowledges the importance of maintaining a safety net, it emphasizes economic reforms to reduce the country's reliance on subsidies. Sajith Premadasa promises to expand social welfare spending by 30% with an emphasis on increasing monthly allowances for unemployed youth and expanding low-income housing schemes. His Gamudawa, also known as Village Development Program, is central to his vision, aiming to build 50,000 houses for underprivileged families by 2025. Anurakumara Disanayake advocates for a universal basic income to provide financial security for all Sri Lankans. He pledges to increase welfare benefit by 50% and continue housing development for the poor, focusing on reducing inequality and protecting the most vulnerable citizens. Namal Rajapaksa's manifesto prioritizes poverty alleviation with the goal of reducing poverty by 15% over the next 5 years. He plans to expand social safety nets, especially for the elderly and disabled, and proposes a 20% increase in pension benefits, bringing an additional 200,000 elderly citizens under coverage. In Dilip Jayavira's manifesto, he proposes the Hite Haya entrepreneurial welfare scheme, which aims to transform social welfare by providing capital for investment instead of financial aid. Beneficiaries will receive entrepreneurial training and access to markets. He also proposes performance-based incentives for Samruddhi officers with a focus on developing SMEs. Support will be provided to rural communities suffering from microfinance burdens. In national security, President Wickremesinghe's policy emphasizes modernizing the military and managing regional security partnerships. He views strong defense measures as crucial to Sri Lanka's long-term economic recovery. Sajith Premadasa proposes to reduce military expenditure by 10% to allocate more funds for social services and economic recovery. His defense vision includes ensuring Sri Lanka's role in regional peacekeeping efforts without straining the national budget. Anurakumara Disanayake proposes a significant cut to the defence budget, advocating a 15% reduction to save approximately 100 billion rupees annually. He suggests redirecting these savings to welfare programs and social development initiatives, emphasizing the need to shift focus from militarization to addressing domestic issues such as poverty and inequality. Namal Rajapaksa's defence strategy includes modernizing the armed forces, strengthening cybersecurity, and maintaining vigilance against internal and external threats. He proposes a 15% increase in the defense budget to upgrade military capabilities, improve intelligence network and create a national cybersecurity division to protect critical infrastructure. Dilip Jayavira proposes to establish a proactive defense strategy that includes enhanced surveillance and early warning systems to detect threats. He proposes a central intelligence agency to coordinate and manage intelligence on national security, crime and the economy, and integrated Special Forces Command combining all three defense forces. State-owned enterprises. Although restructuring or reforming of state-owned enterprises became a main topic, the incumbent president's manifesto has not provided much insight into it but has undertaken SOE reforms under his presidency. As the IMF agreement is in force, he has promised to continue SOE reforms aligning with IMF policies and international trade focused to boost economic resilience. Meanwhile, Sajith Premadasa proposes to establish a SOE holding company in keeping with the model of Singapore's Temasek. He also aims to centralize and manage SOE ownership strategically, balancing national security and efficiency, and promises that SOE reforms will focus on improving transparency, efficiency, and management to minimize corruption. Anurukumara Disanayake plans to strategically assess each SOE based on its economic potential, growth capability, and relevance to national security. The assessments will be done focusing on public transparency by providing comprehensive operational information on SOEs. He also wants to promote research and development in SOEs to explore new growth opportunities. Meanwhile, Namal Rajapaksa says his policy does not contain selling of public assets, including state enterprises. He promises to establish entrepreneurial executive boards to carry out planned organizational change projects with specific targets. He also promises to facilitate coordination with the local private sector for the necessary capital and technical support. Meanwhile, Dilip Jayavira promises to establish a fund to provide financial support and resources to all entrepreneurs, including small and medium enterprises affected by external factors beyond their control. In conjunction, he promises to take steps to ensure the sustainability of all state-owned enterprises by introducing a feedback-driven insurance system that minimizes their risk with all relevant state entities involved. Taking into consideration the vision of candidates for Sri Lanka, President Ranil Wickremesinghe is seeking election to continue his reforms and to usher in an era of development where the economy of Sri Lanka will be positioned as a developed country by 2048. He also plans to convert the Sri Lankan economy to an export-oriented economy and also promises to provide tax concessions, ease the cost of living, reduce multidimensional poverty and unemployment within the next 2 years. Meanwhile, Sajith Premadasa's economic policy focuses on providing factor market reforms and relaxing restrictions on land, labour and capital markets to boost domestic and foreign investment. He has promised to renegotiate with the IMF but announced that an SJB government will not derail from the current IMF program. He also plans to integrate Sri Lanka into global manufacturing value chains for electrical goods and EV components. Anurukumara Disanayake also holds a similar economic vision to Sajith Premadasa, focusing on a future of economic democracy with a real GDP target of $120 billion by 2030. His manifesto focuses on food security, equitable access to economic benefits, and sustainable resources utilization. He plans to integrate customs, excise, and tax departments for better tax efficiency and reduce tax evasion. Meanwhile, Dilip Jayavira's economic vision is centered on a structural transformation with production, entrepreneurship, and strategic advantage at its heart. The strategy of Jayavira is an alignment of monetary and fiscal policies, banking and financial sector orientation, trade and foreign policy.